Okay, so good morning. So today I'm going to cover probably two things. We're just starting the lecture 5 slides today, but they're really not that long, so my guess is that we're going to get through all of them before the lecture's done. And then we'll start on the next section, which is about sort of the empirical tools that you need to know in order to understand some of the research articles that we're going to get to in a couple weeks. So the first thing we'll talk about is solving for basically efficient allocations as well as market equilibriums. And these two things, in the sort of simplest case, these two things are the same, because if you don't have any externalities or the market failures, then market equilibrium is an efficient allocation. But in a lot of the cases in this course, the two things are different because there is a market failure. And so what you're going to see really is that, so I'm just going to basically kind of talk about it and go through an example. Again, this is something that it's not on the problem set for that's due this week, but it will be on the next problem set that we do a week from Wednesday or something like that. And then furthermore, it's going to appear on the midterm as well. So I'm also going to come up with a specific date for the midterm for Wednesday. So I'll post that as well. What you should sort of quickly see here is that the key to solving these problems is generally setting up the actual objective function that you want to maximize. So usually you're trying to maximize either like social welfare, which is a function of all of the costs and benefits, not just private costs and benefits, but also social costs and benefits. So that's going to give you the efficient allocation from the social planner's perspective. Or you're going to probably be maximizing either like consumer welfare, which is going to tell you what an individual consumer would do, or profits if you're looking at the firm side and trying to figure out what a firm is going to do. But the key is always to write down the objective function correctly. Once you do that, it's just pretty simple calculus usually to solve it. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing we're going to start talking about are, again, the empirical tools that we use. If you've already taken econometrics, then this part should just be review for you. If you've taken statistics, some of it is going to be review for you, but I know that the majority of people here have not taken econometrics, so for a lot of people it might be still something new. Okay, and the slides for this, I did just post them, but unless you're checking the last 10 minutes, you wouldn't have seen them. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is how we actually solve for an efficient allocation. So we've talked about efficiency, we've talked about externalities, which are costs that aren't taken into account by either side of either party in the transaction, and then we talked about having corrective fees or corrective taxes to try to internalize the externality. But this is all just kind of we're talking about the theoretical. We're talking about sort of qualitatively the steps that need to be taken in order to internalize the externality, but in general we haven't tried to put a specific number on exactly what the tax should be. So what we need to think about here are, first of all, what levels of consumption or production consumers or firms are going to choose, and then what levels of consumption or production you would like consumers or firms to choose. So the first question is sort of what we would call a positive question of describing how firms or how consumers are going to act absent any sort of intervention. And then the second question is more what we call a normative question, which is you're thinking of yourself as, say, the social planner, somebody who's trying to sort of maximize the net benefits to society. You're asking, okay, well, here's what consumers are choosing to consume, or what the amount that producers are choosing to produce, but is that potentially different than the amount that I would like them to consume or like them to produce? So most economics problems basically involve either maximization or minimization. So you're either trying to maximize utility, profits, social welfare, or you're trying to minimize costs. So if you're the social planner, just to give a bunch of examples, if you're the social planner, you want to maximize net benefits, taking into account private costs, private benefits, and social costs and social benefits. If you're a firm, usually you're interested in either maximizing profits or minimizing costs, depending on sort of which part of the firm's production function you're looking at. Consumers are interested in maximizing utility. And so maximization is something that you hopefully know how to do. If you've taken intermediate micro before, you've definitely seen maximization problems before, and you've probably also seen them in various math courses. But the key here is really to define the objective function, which is the thing that you're actually trying to maximize. And once you do that, then all you have to do is differentiate with respect to whatever the choice variable is, and set the derivative equal to 0, and then go through and solve it. So the key here is, basically there's sort of a couple things that are going to be really important. So first of all, defining the objective function means you have to make sure you get all the costs and benefits right. So often people might forget to include some costs or forget to include some benefits, or not quite understand what the benefits are, or something like that. So once one of those things happens, that's going to lead you awry, and you're unlikely to come up with the correct answer. And then the second thing is to make sure that you understand sort of what's a parameter. So what's a variable that is being given to you as a set quantity, and what's a variable that the person who's the actor that is trying to maximize the function, so either the social planner or the firm or the consumer, what's a choice variable for them? So what variable can actually be manipulated by the person who wants to maximize this quantity? And only the choice variables are the ones that, of course, you want to differentiate with respect to. If it's something that the consumer or the firm can't affect, then there's no point in them trying to choose an optimal value of it because they can't affect it. So something like prices, in general, if it's not unless you're in a case where you have a monopoly or something like that, so you can actually dictate prices to the market. In general, as a consumer or a small firm, you can't affect the market price. So that's something that would be a parameter that's given to you, but that you can't choose. Whereas quantities that you sell, if you're a firm, is something that you have control over. So that's what you would maximize with respect to. Okay, so there are really two common scenarios in this course that are going to involve maximization. So the first one is finding an equilibrium. So this is, as I said, this is essentially the positive question. This is where we're trying to describe what would happen or what will happen in the market. So, for example, we might be thinking about how much of a good somebody will consume, or how much of a good a firm will produce, or how much of that good will be supplied in equilibrium. So that's the sort of first broad category of problems. And then the second one is solving for an efficient allocation. So here we're trying to solve for what we believe should happen, as in sort of what we would like to happen as a social planner. So how much of a good we think somebody should consume, or what level of corrective tax, let's say, we should apply as the government or as a social planner. So the most difficult part, as I said, about solving a maximization problem in this class at least, is going to be just setting it up. So once the problem is defined, it's just going to be differentiation and algebra. That doesn't always have to be the case. You can definitely come up with maximization problems where you can't come up with an analytic solution. So basically, you can't just solve it by taking the derivative and setting it equal to 0 and rearranging terms. In that case, you need to start thinking about numerical solutions where the computer basically goes and tries lots and lots of different values for the choice variable and figures out which one comes up or which one ends up maximizing the objective function. But in this class, we're always going to sort of write down maximization problems that you can in fact analytically solve. So it's just really defining the problem that's going to be the most difficult part. So there's two key steps in setting up the problem. First, what you want to do is determine what it is that you want to maximize. So in some cases, it's going to be utility. If you're thinking about consumers, profits. If you're thinking about firms, net benefits. If you're thinking about social planner, and that's really answering the question of what is the objective function here. And then the second thing is determining what your choice variables are. So what you want to think about is what are you maximizing with respect to. So I'm going to illustrate the technique just using an example that we've seen before in the class. So let's suppose that we're trying to determine the quote-unquote efficient level of pollution from the refineries up in Richmond. And so you want to know two questions, or you're interested in answering two questions here. The first is how much the refineries are going to emit in the absence of any intervention. So essentially, this is like what is the free market outcome going to be? And then the second question is how much we would like the refineries to emit after we account for the cost of the pollution. So in order to answer these questions, we're going to make a series of assumptions, which are not really, these aren't like grounded in any specific measurements or anything like that, but it's just an example. So we need to make assumptions in order to set up a trackable problem. The first assumption we're going to make is that refineries are price takers. So they're going to sell the refined oil on the market at a price of P dollars per barrel. This assumption is probably like pretty harmless in the sense that refineries probably are price takers, broadly speaking. I mean, California is a little bit special actually because we have our own gasoline market because we have a special blend that's like not used in any other states, or at least most other states. And so that's why, to some degree, like California gas prices will sometimes diverge from gas prices in the United States. I mean, there's also differences in taxes as well and so forth. So I don't know. It's possible that maybe the refinery has some pricing power in just the California market. But in general, it's probably still a small fraction of the total production. So they're just going to sell into the market at $8 per barrel, however much they can produce. And then we'll also assume they have a convex total cost curve. So the marginal cost, so the idea here is that the marginal cost is going to increase with output. So essentially, as you produce more barrels of oil, the cost per barrel to produce increases. So to give the cost curve convexity, I just had total cost being equal to $1,000, which would be like a fixed cost, and then C1 times Q, which is so Q is the quantity that they're producing, and then C2 times Q squared. So by setting it up as a quadratic, we're going to have increasing marginal cost. If we just had C1 times Q, then it would be a linear function, and that would tell you that the marginal cost is constant. And then, of course, we also think that as you produce more oil, you're going to have more emissions, or more gasoline, you're going to have more emissions. Those are going to impact the health of local residents. And so we're going to assume that the marginal impact also increases with emissions. So the health costs here, these again are total health costs, we're going to have be equal to C3 times Q plus C4 times Q squared. So again, the quadratic function is giving you increasing marginal costs. So hopefully you guys are in your group. So I just want to do a quick group exercise then. So I want you guys to write down the total refinery profits, the total net benefits, so that would be taking into account all of the costs and benefits associated with oil production, both on the private side and the social side, and then so total net benefits both to the refinery and the residents, and also say which things here are parameters that are being taken as given, and which things are choice variables. So I'm just going to give you guys a few minutes to talk briefly about that, and then I'll either group or volunteer, or I'll just pick a group to give their answers. Oh, yeah, sorry. There you go. Oops. Okay, I think that's she's taken. Yep. That's total health costs. Oh, yeah, no, you don't have to think about size. I can see how you would be thinking about that given the guest lecture that you had, but yeah, no, that was like, I would have done the same question even if you guys hadn't been exposed to that, so yeah.
Can I prompt you a bit? Is it more expensive to guarantee if you put in a crash versus
Yeah, so the assumption in the problem is that it would be more expensive to repair the more expensive part. Okay, so you guys should wrap up your discussion in the next minute, and then I'll see if any group wants to volunteer. Okay, so do any of the groups want to volunteer their solution to the problem? So again, this is like your group gets some participation credit. Otherwise, I'll just randomly pick one. Group one, you guys seem to be eager. Did you guys? Okay. Okay. And what about the net benefits? Okay, and so then what are the choice variables that you guys see versus the parameters that are being given to you? The CI indices. Sure. And is that it, or is there anything else? Does any other group have any additional parameters? The price. Yep. And then so then I guess by conclusion, the quantity is the choice. Yep. Okay, great. So sorry, which group are you guys? Are you group 4? Okay. Okay, so so that is the solution. Oh, also for groups 1 and 4, can you guys just give me a list of like roster of people who are here today? Yeah, sorry. So let me write up what they said in words. So the I'll call net benefits. It's basically going to be the profits minus whatever social costs are involved. So the profits are going to be revenue, which is price times the amount that you sell, minus your cost of production. So total cost, so that would be 1,000 minus C1Q minus C2 Q squared. So right there, this is profits, which we often you'll just see written as like pi of Q, saying profits are a function of Q. And then you have to subtract off the total health costs. So C3Q minus C4 Q squared, which was given in the middle bullet point there. And so that's the total net benefit. And then, again, the choice variable, the only thing that the firm has control over here, and even the social planner has control over here, is the quantity of oil that's produced. So it's going to be differentiated with respect to Q. Yep. Excuse me? So that's going to come out when you solve the problem. So you're going to get that. And so you can see, okay, so if you just look at first at the firm's problem, so the thing is like, I've written down some of the parentheses, basically this is like the firm's problem, and then if we take into account the health costs as well, then it becomes the social planner's problem. But we can think about solving the firm's problem first. So you have this objective function, which is their profits, and you're going to differentiate it with respect to Q. So when we take the derivative of that with respect to Q, we get P, 1,000 is just a constant, so the derivative of that is 0. Let me just write down, so we have P minus C1, take the derivative with respect to Q, and then minus 2 times C2 times Q when we differentiate the quadratic term with respect to Q. And so we set that equal to 0, which means then P is equal to C1 plus 2 C2 times Q. And that's actually the price is equal to the marginal cost, right? So if you took the total cost, well, it's not very, but if you took this thing and differentiate with respect to Q, then you get C1 plus 2 C2Q. So that's price is equal to marginal cost. And then if we were to solve for the social planners, or solve the social planners problem, we also need to take into account the health costs. So those would be, the problem would just involve a couple more terms. So we're again differentiating with respect to Q. The profit maximization problem has the same derivative, and then the derivative of the health cost is C3 plus 2 C4 times Q. So we're subtracting off the marginal health cost. Set that whole thing equal to 0. And now you're going to get price is equal to C1 plus 2 C2Q plus C3 plus 2 C4 times Q. And I didn't say it, but implicitly all of these, so C1, C2, C3, and C4 are going to be positive. I haven't put any specific value on them yet, but they're definitely, the implication was that they're positive, since I said it was convex. And so you can see that the price, so the free market equilibrium, price is equal to C1 plus 2 C2 times Q. And then it's going to be something higher when you have the price is always the same. I mean, I guess there would be price, there would be a tax exclusive price, but this is just the market price, which the firm doesn't have any control over. So in order to actually then solve through for Q, which is the quantity, we would have to basically do P minus C1 minus C3 is going to equal 2 C2 plus C4 times Q, which then implies that the quantity produced is equal to P minus C1 minus C3 over 2 times C2 plus C4. And so since the C parameters are positive, you can see that the quantity falls once you take into account the social cost. And the way to see that is, first of all, you have this extra. So if we had just solved the firm's problem, then implicitly we're saying C3 and C4 are 0. We're ignoring them. So you would just get P minus C1 over 2 times C2. When we take into account the C3 and the C4, you can see that quantity falls